Well, good afternoon. I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, then I'm going to start this again. Right. I want to do the clap thing that people do. Okay, good afternoon. You're here with me, these two creatures, and this probably the sound of the dishwasher and the occasional sniff because I've been sick and I've had a cold, and we're just going to have to deal with the fact I'm going to try not to sniff. But I was inspired. I saw that Alton Towers Scarefest has just started again, earlier than ever this year, and apparently really good. We went last year, where I definitely learned that the one thing that I don't enjoy is people jumping out at me. So I probably said before that the mazes in Scarefest are visually amazing, but very much not my thing. But it was our experience at Scarefest that actually got me thinking that the one thing that Alton Towers really doesn't seem to have is a unifying theme. And I realised actually that there is one character in Alton Towers who seems to recur in different forms and whom I believe is responsible for everything, not everyone. So the reason that I thought this was, in 2023, Alton Towers launched The Curse at Alton Manor, which is the new refurbished version of Duel and arguably one of the best dark rides in any UK theme park. I'm going to scratch my nose. Its main character is Emily Alton. Now, Emily, as a girl, is sidelined and mistreated by her parents and exacts a supernatural revenge. But the mysterious image of a ghostly young girl haunts more than just one attraction at Alton Towers. And it's my belief that these are not different individuals, but rather the same person, Emily Alton. Now, during the events of the curse, Emily becomes affected by a strange presence and destroys her abusive family. And what happens after that is a story told by the other rides in the park, which have all hinted at the depths of Emily's strange abilities and the source of them. And this is how the Towers have been telling Emily's story all along, even if they didn't realise it. Now, Hex tells a strange and long-concealed story of the Earl of Shrewsbury, the arrogant nobleman driven mad by his family's curse. Now, it does seem clear that Emily, a descendant of the troubled Earl, knew the power of the chained oak and its branch, and how that connects to the mysterious phenomena centred around the family's sprawling estate. After all, the Earl's laboratory had been hidden in plain sight, and Emily had been left to her own devices for most of her life. It isn't unreasonable to think that she happened upon the abandoned branch and began performing experiments of her own. Did whatever inhabited the branch have an effect on the vulnerable Emily at some point, which in turn led to the troubling events in the curse? It's also clear that Emily had some hand in what happened during the attic, which was a now retired scare maze during Scarefest season. I think it finished last year. And now we can move on to the Dark Forest, which is quite close by. It's important to note that the owners of Alton Towers had opened the grounds to visitors since 1860, and this was long before Emily's birth. And it isn't at all unusual that she would decide to continue the family's legacy and try to attract more visitors because, after all, showmanship, among other things, was in her blood. Now, following some considerable success up until the late 1980s, nothing was quite as intriguing or dangerous as the discovery of the Nemesis creature during excavations in Forbidden Valley. Now, Emily had found the answer to all of her questions, but had created many more. This was clearly the origin of all the peculiar events and strange energies that had affected Emily's family for centuries. Now, the cost of restraining Nemesis drained nearly all of Emily's ample funds, in spite of charging people to ride over the caged beast. And over time, the restraints began to fail. Or was Nemesis becoming stronger? Nobody ever dared ask how, but Emily tapped into a limitless source of wealth and with it founded the Phalanx, a task force with the sole function of maintaining, monitoring and discovering more about whatever Nemesis truly was, where she came from and what she wanted. I'm going to cut this bit because I'm scratching my nose. Right. Sorry for the cut. Had to scratch my nose. Maybe the power contained in Nemesis could be used to benefit humanity in some way. Well, Nemesis' restraints were modified, Emily claimed improved, but the monster's rage left massive scars on the area. It's also clear that Emily is attempting in some way to breed Nemesis. Although the flanks seem unable to maintain true containment and are perpetually chasing Nemesis' escaped young, as any unfortunate guest who has visited Subterra or the compound and survived can grimly confirm. A new device has been installed to extract venom from the creature, again with an opaque purpose in mind. Mind you, further down the valley, the same concentration of undefinable forces that brought Nemesis to our dimension began to coalesce. Gradually, this created what Emily insisted should be called the Galactica Gate, and a structure was designed and built to protect and monitor the gateway, and Emily, always considering how to trap more visitors, was able to route the energies to power guests around it. For once, it did appear that guests were benefiting from the experience rather than just Emily, leaving the structure with an increased sense of well-being. Those around her believed this response was entirely coincidental. At the very back of the park, we find 13. Strange happenings have been rumoured to be occurring at the ruined chapel mouldering at the back of the grounds, and the remaining clergy had created some kind of cult. Whilst they were tolerant of Emily's childhood explorations of the area, they were not pleased to be disturbed by the grown-up but very, very well preserved Emily and her sudden interest in renovation works. Despite the unfortunate fate which did befall anyone who attempted to visit the building, Emily pressed on. And for her, a thrill ride hidden at the back of the park was the perfect idea, propelling hundreds of souls towards the ancient building every day. And nearby is Rita. Now, finding an old hot rod in the woods, overgrown and almost reclaimed by the forest, was strange enough, but Emily insisted the vintage car be renovated anyway. It didn't take long before the car's true nature, affected over time by the Nemesis energies, asserted itself. Now, Rita had been freed from the tangled overgrowth that kept her prisoner, and unsurprisingly wanted to race. After several injuries were caused by Rita's astonishing speed, Emily decreed that Rita be given her own racetrack, and the car was adapted to accommodate yet more paying thrill seekers. Now, moving across to X Sector, we find that Emily remains curious about the phenomena around the park, and in particular, whatever had affected her back in 1892, which kept her alive, youthful, and relatively human in appearance. She created and funded several research institutes, no questions asked, to create various machines, to perform experiments on human volunteers. She never seemed interested in the findings, but at times can be spotted around the smiler, which stemmed from a desire to force laughter and joy upon people by any means necessary, something she never experienced herself as a child, and oblivion, as if performing studies of her own. Now, a walk through the gardens leads visitors to an outlandish creation made from wood, Wicker Man. Emily, in her lonely childhood wanderings in the ground of the towers, had long been aware that the clerics in the ruined chapel were offshoots of a larger group. Her parents had believed that the small settlement of wild-eyed locals who called themselves the Bjornen were the families of the groundskeepers, and as the Altons treated the community with the same disdain as their own daughter, they never bothered to check too closely. After her parents' demise, Emily allowed the group to practice openly. They were sensitive to the presence of Nemesis and had been for centuries, interpreting her as an incarnation of the deity they worshipped. And when Nemesis was unearthed, the cult became stronger and more powerful. Eventually, Emily agreed to their request for a large structure for their more complex rituals, and also to their request for humans to ride upon it. Emily, of course, never asked why. Now, the discordant whooping sounds of Spinball Whizzer can be heard from some distance away. The creation of this is possibly the strangest story of all, in a park full of very strange stories indeed. During her miserable childhood, Emily would sneak into the billiards room in the towers and would play by herself for hours. After the incident in 1892, she retained a fascination for games like these, where balls would spin and bounce, and wouldn't it be funny, she thought, if she could make people do the same thing. Now, she can sometimes be spotted in the restricted area around Spinball Whizzer as well, making notes on what goes on above. There are still questions. Is Emily still at large? How is she connected to Sir Algernon, who ostensibly heads up an association of explorers and adventurers? And what about those rumoured connections between Algernon and two other very similarly named groups based in the United States and Germany? And importantly, what of the pirates? It has been thought that the pirates are originally cult members who were encouraged by Emily to travel far and wide in search of similar phenomena. On their return, they continue to practice their pirate ways in the hope of encouraging new recruits. Now I hear that Alton Towers' new scare zone and scare maze actually fill in some of the story. There is more going on in Dark Forest than even I had originally imagined. And certainly people recreating Emily walking around the Dark Forest trying to grab you in is quite interesting. Do they know even more than what I've already been speculating about? Who can say? I don't think I'm going to be able to go to Scarefest this year. Just basically, I've got other things going on, but looking forward to probably going next year. And I'm going to see if I can get to Thorpe Park as well. I would also like to add, if anyone watched my previous video about the mistakes people make when organising school or youth club trips to theme parks, and you're thinking, yeah, but you don't really organise trips, you don't really know what you're doing, you can't plan for this. I'd like to say that yes, I did. I went to Chessington last week with a group of about 13 kids, and they all had a really good time. And they all listened to what I said, and it worked really well. So I just would like to state for the record that I was right. You can in fact organise a school trip where kids don't spend 2 hours in a queue and have a crap time. So yeah, you are very welcome. Sorry. And other than that, the kittens are asleep, fortunately, and I will see you again soon. I will put some more kitten videos up. Just whenever they do something adorable. They are right at the obnoxious adolescent stage. I would also like to say adopt, don't shop. And if you're going to adopt kittens, I've certainly had kittens over the years. I've never adopted two at the same time. And during their obnoxious phase, it's so much better with two of them, because when they want to fight, they can fight each other rather than your hand or your feet or your curtains, and that's actually worked much better than I thought it would. So yeah, adopt, don't shop. If you're getting kittens, get two kittens, and I will see you in the next one. Now I'm going to get up and turn this off. Ow.